brown and the sky is gray. I've been for a walk on a winter's day. I'd be safe and warm if I wasn't there.
Thank you.
Whoa, what's up, dudes? What is up? 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 Hey, 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 hey. Hanging out. Cool, cool. I was looking around and, dude. Actually, Basil Tikoff, who is one of the best geologists I know, was just on Planet Geo Science Podcast and said some things, and I started, I commented. But, I don't know where. I literally was thinking about watching this, but, I didn't feel like time-stamping the things I thought was most interesting. At some point, he said, fuck. He's talking about his paper, the hit and run, this paper. Hit and run model. So anyone who doesn't know, Basil Tikoff is a prominent geologist in specifically the theory of Baja BC, which is a hypothesis based in paleomag data and other things like undoing faults and things that bring components back to different locations in the past, and documenting the west coast of North America. And his focus is on that, trying to decipher what happened. And he said, well, it's not really a hit and run, even though I called it a hit and run. We called it a hit and run, him and the other co-authors. It's really more of a hit, a lean into, and run. So there's this pressure element, and that really grabbed my attention because I've been tracing current flows of the Earth. Maybe we can go Pacific focused. Maybe, where are, dude, did I lose some of my best ones to fucking getting banned on Twitter? Fucking cunt ass shit. I hope not. I feel like I lost some like this for around Australia, though. Motherfucker. I'm banned on Twitter for no apparent reason. Cannot appeal because they don't respond. They have a complete say. You have no position to rebut their position. They just get to do what they want because it's Twitter. And Elon Musk is our Lord and Savior. Fucking moron. Here it is. Okay, still got it. Am I too obvious with my disapproval? Fucking moron. Is it too obvious? No, the Democrats are the ones that at least can recognize a fucking moron when all the Republicans are getting taught why to be fans of Elon Musk. Anyway, besides the point, I don't want to get distracted on bullshit. Current flows of the Pacific that were during the global flood that flowed across Antarctica this way to go over here, to go in here, and then ended up shifting over as another current went in this way, shifting it over until the current ended up going this way, and then going ultimately up against this resistance of other currents and going up that way. And then this current continues through here as well as going up this way and interacting through North America and and South America, but up to North America too. And then the current from Philippines back over this way to Philippines. So we have this element where the top I drew like that. So if we go back here, so what I was thinking about today was, well, hit and lean into, and specifically that's what it was. He said there is evidence from Mexico to Alaska, but not southern Mexico and beyond. So hit is limited to here, at which point it's back the other way in these arrows. So what I have here is generally a flow going this way, in, across, and then down and around this way, back to this point, and then up, and then back, and just a general outer boundary, and then an inner boundary that this red current goes across and continues and then fans out at. I know it's a little hard to see what's going on here, but there's a current from eastern North America that went through the Gulf region that then continued, very closely related to the formation of Ontong Java Plateau, that then continued though and applied a pressure specifically into the wedging corner of the Western Pacific that was opening. And the eye of the world was being opened between it by the current flows. So it's not just arbitrarily opening. There's current flows that are eddying in here that are opening the space. But a major component is that there is a focal point here. This thing that has a wing magnetic field type structure around it. And by wing, I mean literally like a snow angel. Legs, wing, wing, and then a trident out the top where current flows are major components of what's happening. With regard to these things here are related to the, I believe they're called fracture zones. Let's just make sure it's fracture zone. Like Clipperton fracture zone. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, we're good. We're good. Fracture zones. So these are the fracture zones. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Which is... Clipperton is 15. Clarion fracture zone is 14. So Clarion and up to 11. So what I have drawn in that image is like... is, if we go, here's Philippines, like over there, in terms of the top of the Philippines. Oh yeah, this is relevant. But just going across, not from that one actually, from up here. Alright, from that one. And across to here. Like, yeah. This region from here across and up is where I said from Philippines going this way up across and then turning upward and largely just deflecting back and going back out that way. But some of which
went more so in here. Into Yellowstone, like majorly contributing to the formation of Yellowstone and the hotspot in general. But bending back and going this way, generally speaking, in the current flows, and looping here as like a upper loop that's kind of separate but holding this region, while below it is this other eddy where a current that's going here, it doesn't bend upward, it bends downward, but it goes like across this whole thing, I guess like across here, and comes out that way, maybe even across to here if I remember right, and bends around here. Mind you, this was over here. So it's really current going across this way that's physically participating and moving, opening the Gulf. So maybe it's aptly named Gulf of America because it's opening the Gulf from America. And not from Mexico. I don't know. Pardon me. I don't want to give any positive feedback to this name change. That's ridiculous. Oh my god. Oh, anyway, but it returns. So like maybe if we draw it here, kind of just across there, and then across to Yellowstone, but then generally turning. So let's say like turning back, where it's just flowing across, and then bending back, mostly there. And then generally going back that way, rather than as much down. I mean, certainly down too, because this flow here is going across, so it would flow with it, so maybe it also goes that way. But like there is a chunk up here that's eddying in this direction. Or I didn't draw that arrow right, but it goes that direction down. Not this way. But then below it, it does go down and across there. I was thinking maybe it even eddies in a way where like this layer that I'm drawing now actually kind of points back to here instead. I'm not completely sure. It's hard to make out what's going on over here. Not in this map. This map is useless for that pretty much. But the only usable map to really look, this, where we can see like in the contours here a relationship between this fracture zone, this portion right here of the magnetic anomaly map, this portion, and then this fracture zone are all related. This fracture zone, or whatever it's called at this point, it's not really called a fracture zone because it didn't manifest in the same way, but it's the next boundary out. I don't think it's called a fracture zone, but this boundary to that fracture zone. So that's the idea. Is so what's happening here is the continents. How do I do this? Let's zoom out really far. Oh, that works. So here's North America. when Florida and then the Gulf, but like this was up in there, and then South America relatively attached as one, and then Europe generally nearby, and then Africa. Those were touching, so I didn't do a very good job, but let's go ahead and move Europe. Africa probably should have done first. I don't know what I'm doing. There we go, good enough. Europe, coming in like that or so. But the point is, what is the point? I already lost track. What were we just talking about? Oh yeah, the continents were once together with Australia. Australia started up here with Papua New Guinea, generally at the North Pole. And an eddy formed here. So current flow went generally through the Mediterranean and the opposite way across Asia and met above Australia. And other currents were at play, probably from these directions as well, just based on how it ended. And an eddy then formed here. Let me think for a second. Eddy formed. Let's say clockwise for the time being. While the continents were still conjoined. And then that started to actually break the earth apart. And Australia broke free enough that it started to rotate. So it moved down so that Papua New Guinea moved down here. With Australia off of it. Let's just do it how I did it there. But where it didn't just arbitrarily move, the currents are also redirecting and going this way across into it, whereas this current over here is shifting down too, and then there's current coming from the north into this area that's actually not going above like this, it's going up more here. So like this X point matters still. And the eddy is still happening. And current flow is then like there's a hole here where Australia generally reattached somewhat, like some portion of it in a manner like this reattached, where these segments of the Philippines and North Maluku and Papua New Guinea were all adjacent to Australia, and this over here, Borneo. And these, though, Borneo, not so much. This broke away earlier, I think. But these ones were attached to Australia while it was rotating, directly attached to it, so as to reattach where Papua New Guinea reattached here in these bond points to North America that then broke. So South Australia was attached here, where then current flow was directed up this way and deposited material in North America from Baja California as part of this process. But importantly, did so with pressure because of, again, this process. So then Australia, let's move it out further, gets pushed away. This red current basically pushes it away. So it moves over here. But still with that point relevant, and this point is where Ontong Java is now plateau. This thing, which was part of this, these were together according to hypothesis, which is definitely true. This was with it as well, the Hikurangi Plateau, Manihiki Plateau, as well as this area formed with it, and other things formed with it, so there's a lot going on here. But this was forming over here, like right off of this, is this. This here is the bond. So off of the bond, here's the bond. Off of the bond at this eddy point that we see in better in the magnetic anomaly map, where we can really see like a center, a nucleus, and then another eddy type thing going on. But this eddy point is where Ontong Java was forming, probably closely related to the opening of the Gulf. Let's see, when did the Gulf open? When did the Gulf of earlier than this is more in line with approaching. The basin was largely complete by around 140 million years ago. I'm just thinking, is it possible the basin was emptied and like portions of it were taken to Ontong Java? It's probably more so that the focal point moved to Ontong Java after opening the Gulf of Mexico. Fucking Trump. Fucking noobs, dude. Noobs. It's trolling. They're just fucking trolling. And so notice here, we follow this point across to here, across, boom, right exactly to it. So it's literally right there, exact. So on top of like that, this story can be told. Oops. It also goes actually correctly to the locations in ways that are like, what the fuck? How is this dude making up all this shit yet able to explain data? So current was flowing this way over to Ontong Java. Meanwhile, though, this was like Ontong Java Nui, more so when it was like in this area. In this area, between the continents, was where shit was going down. Ontong Java Nui was there. And the sphere of Hawaii, because there was an eddy on top of Australia that created an ammonite-like shape. And that shape, I didn't draw the circle right, but ejected a sphere that went to the edge of Australia when it was over here, which was actually more so where this is, because it was actually abutting there, and then it exited here. So there was a current flow going off of Australia that was initially going into South America at Ecuador and Peru region, where we talked about in the past. This place is flowing in, eddying, although this red current's the wrong direction. I've realized it's a current going the other way, and then this current's going this way into South America off of the ammonite eddy of Australia that then fed current over that way, as well as the Hawaiian sphere there, which then, as the Earth expanded, it more so fed current this way. Like it ran into here and redirected it this way until it was going this way in opposition to that current, but turning Australia in the meantime. I don't know if that fit there. I don't know if that fit there. I was just going with it. I was flowing in that moment. The flows of Australia. Let's move on. So the reason I started this was because I was thinking about this. Flowing like this. Flowing around this point, we're all the same. So mind you, this was all much more narrow, pinched back together. Where these points were, this green one and the aqua were once together. It was once here, and before then it was over here. And it was the trident going up this way. It was just going right up this way into North America until it ended up flexing this way and going into North America, but more with an eastward propagation than northward, which was happening as the Pacific was opening. So an eddy was flowing here across North America and running into the resistance of this other current flow going across that interacted with it. It seems like it literally went across too, and it seems like it passes through. Like there's this eddy thing going on, but this current kind of just goes right through it, and then at some point the eddy pushes it up enough that it goes over through it and gets pushed up this way, which then leads to it actually opening as part of the process, at least. But then what's happening here, like imagine the water is just going into North America, off of it, and going back. And in and off. It's eddying. I was looking at this. And it occurred to me like right here. This boundary. If I go kind of like this, and then down this way, across this way, across that way, and then over here it's not so defined, but generally up this way, to then generally go back over here, maybe with a inlet region here, outlet region here, that made it so it didn't have a complete circle kind of thing, where there was a current flow, eddy, and then current flow. So there's an inlet outlet kind of thing going on that's actually visible over here. But where, as this is opening, it's producing an eddy to a point where within the back and forth that's more just layered, an eddy manifests. That's just big. So my thought is the eddy on Australia here, it could not like stay there very stably as the Pacific opened, and it literally fell into the Pacific Ocean floor region, where it formed the Ontong Java Nui complex over here. But it was still eddying, and that caused, because it went deeper down, it to have outward pressure, not just on water and nearby structures that are like on the surface, but instead to have pressure on the sides of the continents so as to physically push outward. So there's this added element that this eddy fell into the crevice as all these other currents off of the continent fell into the crevice, and the eddy built up enough that it actually was able to push out the boundaries and fully eddy in the currents as this big eddy, as the earth just expanded to a new radius and could actually stabilize, so that the flows of water off the continents were no longer producing freaking eddies in the Pacific that are flowing across the continent, just across it. So that's what this is. This is the eddy. The eddy, the linear eddy, the stacked layer eddy, and then the manifestation of a true eddy, a true whirlpool in the water, where it's really like the current is pushing out its boundaries, and that's where we see its interaction. Its presence is by its general boundaries, like the difference in just how it looks, but in the region, I guess, is probably partly because there was an eddy there, but the boundary as well, though, in terms of showing itself, which is kind of like these currents are going across, but they're really only showing themselves by their boundary current at the fracture zones. Mind you, these are not the only currents. There's other current that's going like up this way and between and up this way and into Alaska, into Alaska here, into this point, into the pressure point. But the current once was doing differently, so let's see if we can find this one. Here it is. It once was going across this way. See, cut off path. This is fucking mind-boggling, guys. When I was watching this podcast, the Planet Geo podcast earlier, it came up that Idaho has batholiths that are like part of the Sierra Nevada batholith kind of thing. Like there was an arc here that went to Idaho, and I'm like, dude, I said here, I mean, just based on inference, totally nothing to do with that. That this current, that now when it finally like stopped and the flood ended, when it was going up this way into this point, it didn't always do that. It was previously going onto North America and to the center of the Hudson Bay eddy, flowing across that way, meaning the Sierra Nevada batholith and the Idaho influence might actually be from a time in the past when this current was going that way, and then it got cut off when the western Idaho shear zone was formed in the docking of Wrangellia. I think Wrangellia, I can never forget the freaking terrain names. I think in terms of which one's which. Whichever one was at 100 million, I'm fairly certain Wrangellia, but there's Silesia is 50, so it's gotta be Wrangellia. The Intermontane is earlier. So basically, maybe even when the Intermontane went up, it blocked off. So let's find this Alaska image that I put some time into because it's freaking worth it. Intermontane is all the way up here to the Rocky Mountain Trench. Makes sense. The trench being the boundary where the current was flowing and passing the pressures of these currents, where it's looking at another unrelated current that was flowing this way, was interacting with these northward currents, and that was then yielding the Colorado or the Rocky Mountain Trench, which then did all sorts of stuff, which is amazing and incredible in terms of how that current flowed through the region all the way. But he was saying there's gradient shear here, gradient stress in the rock, where the rocks are deformed and stretched, like stretched out in a direction, but where there's a gradient and it's hard to decipher. Meaning, like, it kind of makes sense if there's a freaking spot here where all these flood currents are coming together and then shooting up current and material. That's when it's positioned over here relative to North America. Shooting up material. What's even going in here, I think. Cutting in this way. And then applying a pressure just into this region, maybe against resistance, where it then compressed the Sierra Nevada batholith region. But then also just stretching one side because it's got this intense current flow passing through, possibly even closely related to the trident, like narrow portions. I don't know if it like might relate to very narrow sections here. The boundary currents that are there, but like further up, because this is like Mexico. This here is related to here, where this gash is. Gash is related to that thing there we just saw. It's not visible on the Earth itself, but it's very visible in the magnetic anomaly map. Like the unzipping of the Earth, literally. Unbuttoning of the Earth. Take it off, baby. But notice it's got kind of an arc to it. Go down. And if we follow this way and across. Oh no, it's not like the most defined. Maybe when I zoom out like this, I can see it in the blue. Across here. So that means, mind you, there's another eddy over here. It's kind of crazy. Like, I don't know what to make of it. I keep thinking about freaking flat Earth. Not flat Earth exactly, but like if things are more like one atop each other, like if imagine there's a really thick layer and an eddy is happening on one side, eddy here, and the other side is erupting some kind of eddy basaltic style. Eddy here, eddy here. Although this one might actually post-date the other one, so it's not necessarily simultaneous. I just thought it was a curious idea. Like, wow, dude. Thinking about, is it possible for the Earth to be shaped like an ammonite or something like that, where like we want to know where it would hide its details somehow, and we would not realize, but like it's more appropriately described as an ammonite, where like two sides of the ammonite, 1, 2 of the structure, but folded in more so that it's almost like a wormhole between the two. It's not the only instance where I've seen some kind of almost like, it would make sense if it was just folded and interacting like that kind of thing. If the Earth ever ends up being flat, it's not in the modern flat Earth paradigm, that's for sure. It would be in a much more scientifically rigorous way that it's just not flat either. It's more a shape that's not a sphere, I guess. AKA an ammonite galaxy. Galaxies are kind of flat, but more of that nature. Oh my god, it would be so cool. Where like the physics of it all makes it so just like you're going around you're flying on the globe, but then you go from one side of the surface to the other side of the surface, and it doesn't even really, like, there's that exact point is not very clear. I don't know. I could envision the universe having like subtleties like that. I don't know if it. I'm not saying it does. I'm not saying the Earth is flat. I see there's some more people here that are probably like, "What the fuck is dude saying? The Earth is flat?" Oh Lord, he's saying the Earth is flat. No, I'm saying the Earth expanded in the global flood. But it's cool to think about the if there is a connection here. An eddy here, eddy here. It may just be that this current is going this way, eddying here. So there's an eddy over here on like the east side of this thing. And then there's a eddy up here above this thing. Like from Philippines across to wherever it was, like around here. So above this is another second eddy that's kind of going back and forth, although it's not very visible in the magnetic anomaly map here. And then another eddy in here. So current going this way, generally counterclockwise here. Well, this one is going generally clockwise. Because it's going out across this way and up and over. This is going this way into North America and then off of it. So it's a clockwise eddy in a generally counterclockwise flow around it. Although I might be generalizing that too much. I'm just thinking this one is counterclockwise. Goes this way around counterclockwise. This is probably like this is flowing this way. But then I think the return current across it pushes it up that way. And kind of takes over this way to go around counterclockwise here. My guess is the current flow from it coming from over here related to the Mariana Trench. It's flowing through here. Enters in, it probably enters in and eddies. I feel like it's going counter to the surrounding eddy though. Counterclockwise so as to interact with the surrounding eddy and push a boundary between them so as to have room to not be running into each other. Oh man. Okay, dudes. That was kind of all I had for the time being. I certainly could just keep looking and thinking about it. There's the eddy here. Bighorn Mountain centered eddy as well, which I definitely did not account for. That's right, it goes across this way and reflects up. Maybe eddies in like that. Cross, up, around, eddies. into Bighorn, while another portion goes up and straight into Yellowstone in the eddy. That's like pushing it back down. Pushing it back down. So the current itself in the pressures is being caused to go back to itself. So then it leads to this current funneling in more exactly. Dude, I broke the game. It's kind of crazy. It's fucking mind-boggling how much I broke this game, bros. You could take any game, it doesn't matter, a physical copy of it, and shatter it into as many pieces as you want, and you still won't have broken that game as much as I broke the game. I fucking broke the game. I got the cheat codes, boys. See you in the next one. Peace out.
Sit